counter-rejects them. Now this rejection and counter-rejection is not to be confused with the Reformation and the Counter-Reformation. They're two different things. Both very, very vital subjects. Specifically, Matthew 12 deals with Israel's rejection of Christ. Matthew 12, verses 43 through 45, describes the return of the unclean spirit with 7 more like it, but more wicked, the last state worse than the first. Even so shall it be also unto this wicked generation, or in effect, the nation of Israel, in context. Here is where context is extremely vital. If you're a demonologist, you're an exorcist, you go to this particular verse. But this verse is not talking about exorcism per se on an individual basis or a ministry of exorcism. It is simply talking about the nation of Israel. When they rejected Christ, he was ready to purge them of their sin, in effect, cast out the demon. But they rejected his offer of kingdom. So what happens? He is saying, in effect, because you have rejected me, and I'm going to withdraw my offer of kingdom and kingship, your state in which you are in now will be, quote, illustratively, figuratively, 7 times worse. Now, from the time of the rejection of Christ, has Israel's state ever been improved or equal to its state at that point in time? They had a temple, they had their boundaries and everything. What would follow? The diaspora. They'd be scattered all over the world. They would suffer terribly, and so on. Even unto this time, even though they are back in the land, you can't say they are in a state equal to or better than the state that Jesus found them in. When he was giving the offer, they had a temple. They had a priesthood. They don't have a temple. They don't have a priesthood. They are in a state of utter spiritual blindness. In fact, it took an Israelite to explain to me that Israel is generally secular to the hilt, in spite of having a rabbinate and having what they call their grand temple, synagogue and so forth. All right, so Jesus executed his counter-rejection. Further confirmation, you look at these scriptures here, and except their rock had sold them, and the Lord had shut them up, hideth. How? Selling them diaspora. All right, so they're without nationhood, they're without boundaries, they're scattered all over the world, they're hidden again. Counter rejection of Israel. Israel sold or rejected him for 30 pieces of silver. Their rock sold them in response, for it is true. Whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. And boy, Israel has come under that curse, in effect, in spades. Thus, Jesus hid his treasure, Israel, by a scattering, or the diaspora. And so well that 10 tribes still remain lost to this day. Would you say that he has hidden Israel pretty well there? Even though they're searching for those 10 tribes, and they have reason to believe where some of them actually migrated to, they're still lost. All right, now, finally what happened to the treasure? Jesus found it. Jesus hid it. Now the third thing, Matthew 13:34, he selleth all that he hath and buyeth that field. Now Jesus gave his life on the cross, legally bought back the world, okay, which Adam had forfeited or lost at the fall. Okay? Selling it, look at John 11, verses 51 and 52, Isaiah 53, verses 10 and 11. And buying, go to 2 Peter 2:1. Revelation 10, the little book, being referred to here on the transparency as a deed, and others refer to that little book that John would eat, and it would be sweet to his taste, but when it finally resided in his stomach, it would be bitter. And there are those who taught for years that it was the deed to this world. It is not. I didn't cross it out yesterday when I was going through this, but since having pursued a very deep study on this subject, and the seal judgments and so-called judgments and so forth, there's an entirely different take on this now. And that book, there's virtually nothing said about the book other than eat it, and it's sweet, and it's bitter in your stomach. It's anybody's guess what really is in that book. Some would speculate it's the Word of God, and those who accept it, it's sweet. Those who reject it, it will be bitter. Okay. Maybe. All right? But we don't know. We really don't know. But the deed to the world is contained in the Scriptures. And it starts all the way back in Genesis. Okay? And it is bought back by the kinsman redeemer, Jesus Christ, on the cross. That's his purchase price to redeem the world. Okay? There's a second function of the kinsman redeemer. His first is to be able to buy. The second, in terms of repurchasing the world, is taking back the world. That is, evicting those who are usurpers, squatters. Satan and his Gentile world system, in effect, are squatting on this world that they no longer own, because God has a deed that says he created the world, he owns the world. Adam forfeited. God judicially goes ahead and repurchases it. He buys it by the cross. But buying back the world, when you have a whole entire Gentile world system under the leadership of Satan, squatting on the world and claiming ownership of the world, then the second responsibility of the kinsman redeemer is evicting all of that. You take Revelation and look at the so-called judgments. They are not judgments, they are the acts from seal, trumpet, to bowls, outlining step by step the eviction process that God, the kinsman redeemer, executes by way of evicting all of those on the planet Earth in defiance to him and defying his rightful judicial legal claim to the earth. Does that get the bigger picture now? What happened to the treasure? 1, Jesus found it. 2, Jesus hid it, worldwide dispersion. And Jesus secured it by giving his life on the cross to buy back the field or the world. However, there's a problem. Purchase is not possession. A person goes into the jewelry shop, he pays for this beautiful ring, and he says, I'm going on a trip. I don't want to carry that very costly ring in my pocket. Would you hold it for me? Yes, I'll put it in the safe. When you come back, here's a little piece of paper, you come back and redeem it. Well, I redeemed it here by paying the price. I come back from my trip and I present my little thing there that I own that ring, and he gives it. So I take what? I'm in that second phase of redeeming it by taking possession. Okay? And that's what's happening here. Purchase is not possession. The parable stops with the treasure Israel secured through purchase of the field by Jesus' death on the cross. Logically, shouldn't it go on to Jesus possessing or redeeming Israel? It is left out. Why? Well, it's really just a matter of perspective. We want to realize that we're talking about Christendom here, the past, present, and future of Christendom, and the end of that phase of Christendom. And the taking possession of Israel takes place after the 7-year tribulation period. Well, the church has already been raptured. Christendom at that point in time is when it becomes 100% apostate. The 7-year tribulation is the destroying of the Gentile world system. So let's see what we have here. The 7 parables deal strictly with the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven, or the history of Christendom. It is the administration of Jesus Christ through the church, the presence of the church, in his absence here on planet Earth. Okay? So his administration continues by way of the church and then ends in that phase when the church is raptured. Okay? Well, 7 more years are required in terms of the kinsman redeemer taking possession. But the parable doesn't go into that detail because the rapture ends the mystery of the kingdom of heaven, you see. So, restoration of Israel through Jesus redeeming the treasure is outside the scope of parable Matthew 13 and its 7 parables. Israel's restoration only occurs after this dispensation or church age or end of the history of Christendom. Therefore, even the Scripture's omissions reveal their divine precision and perfectness. In other words, the omission is it doesn't extend into the time of Jacob's trouble or the 7-year tribulation. The church has been taken out. God's administration here on earth, in the absence of Jesus Christ, ends with the rapture of the church. So it is scripturally accurate and divine precision that it doesn't go any further than up to the point of the rapture. That was just a little detail that I felt compelled to put in there because it seemed very logical to say, all right, he's found the treasure, he's hid the treasure, he secures the treasure. Okay, the next thing you want to say is he secured it for what? Ultimately to take possession of it. Well, the possession of it is already after the church has been raptured. So it is very interesting that the parable stops at the point where he has secured it. Right now he has secured Israel. She's back in the land partially in the sense that the whole population of Jews are in the land, and furthermore, the land in which he's in is not all of the what? Promised land.